That's delightful. Lovely. We'll just wait for some people to roll on in and we can get started. Something nice and relaxing today, yes. I think that'll do the trick. Cheers. You're the first here, and here they come rolling in. Hello, everyone. It's me, Twisted. I thought today, even though for some of you it's quite early, I'd read you bedtime stories, or morning time stories, I suppose, or afternoon time stories, depending on your region. I hope you can all hear me clearly and crystal. If I were you, I'd get somewhere nice and comfortable, if possible. Grab your favorite drink, and we can begin our lovely chat. Divine. Now, today, I thought that I would read to you. I have a couple of books that I will allow you to pick through. So I'm going to present you with a book, and you can say whether you're interested or not. Again, I hope that's clear. So, let's put my drink out of the way. Lovely. Now our first book would be this rather plain looking one. Very unassuming, but it has these golden letters on the side. And they say, "The Creatures of Celtic Mythology." Now, I tend to collect books on mythology purely because it's relevant to my storytelling. You'll actually notice quite a few of my stories and characters are in some way based on mythology. Oh, a little something there. So, if you're interested, we could read The Creatures of Celtic Myth. Then our next few books are all in the same vein. This is Eldritch Tales, a miscellany of the macabre. H.P. Lovecraft. Look at that, isn't that pretty? There he is, Mr. Lovecraft, as Benjamin Franklin, apparently. So this is another book you could choose. The third is very pretty cover you'll see here. Tales of Lovecraft. Similar vein, and of course the final one, the Necronomicon. If you know The Evil Dead, you'll know that the Necronomicon is famous for summoning deadites. So, those are the books. You can choose what you like. We've got one vote for myths. Now, I actually haven't read that particular book. I was going to get to it, but I hope you've all got something enjoyable to drink. You know, that's good. Very good. Well, I think people have spoken. So you, my precious friends, will just wait on the sidelines for now. Okay. And as you can see, oh, I opened this the wrong way. It's so hard to tell with these books. But as you can see on the inside, I've got a lovely illustrated picture of some fairies involved in some sort of conflict. Very scary. The creatures of Celtic myth. How fun. Don't you love that old book smell? I would love to know when this was actually published, because I bought it from a reputable bookstore. Goodness, this is an old book. It's from 2000, meaning this book is 21 years old. Goodness. Now we have a selection of different passages. We could, of course, go from beginning through to end, or I could read out the sections. You pick. So these are the sections we have: giants, demons, fairies, merfolk, monsters, halflings, solitary fairies and spirits, witches, wizards, and wise women, ancient heroes. So, if any of those sound appealing to you, we have a vote for fairies, which is page 52. Let's go to page 52, shall we? Fairies. Walt Disney and Tinkerbell have a lot to answer for. They have sanitized the fearsome fairy kind into a child's tale. Fairies are now generally regarded as kindly and gentle, gossamer-winged creatures anxious to aid humans. The type who begin to, the type of beginning who would lead to a lost soul in a dark forest. Either that, or merry little figures dancing in a ring of toadstools. Of course, such sanitization stretches back to Victorian times, where our forebears took the terrifying legend of the past and turned it into stories for their children. For the ancient Celts, however, fairies were not such kindly beings, but rather representations of the elemental forces of nature, who, at best, were precocious in their attitudes towards mankind, and at worst were fully prepared to do to humans some fatal mischief. Who were the fairies? They are the old gods of earth, says Vienda's observation. Said Vienda's Book of Archimandar, firmly setting them within their folkloric context. And such an observation is correct, for as natural gods of the Celtic world began to decline, beaten into submission by the advancing Christian church, they were replaced by the notion of fairy kind. In fact, many Celtic lands are notorious for fairies, little more than half representations of folk memories of the ancient gods and spirits which had once inhabited the landscape. And of course, the notion of fairies still retains some elements of prehistoric belief. The Irish poet and writer W.B. Yeats made a useful distinction. Made a useful distinction between. One moment. We don't want to be disturbed during our writings, do we? So I'll just toss this away. Shh. Useful distinction between trooping fairies, the Maca Shia, or fairy cavalcade, and solitary fairies, who dwell alone in remote, inaccessible places. We shall look at solitary fairies and sprites later, but it is well worth taking a look at fairy hosts or trooping fairies now. In a sense, these were, for the Celtic mind, the last vestiges of the ancient gods who proceeded across the world in certain times of year. They were the last remaining of the wild hunt. Lovely. Which continues to survive in Celtic folklore and traditions of Squire Telgins and his dogs in Cornwall, or of Gabriel's hounds of Wales. Indeed, according to some admittedly questionable sources, the name fairy is to derive from the ancient Fairy, or the, loosely translated as spirit race, thus attempting to establish a clear connection with the ancient spirits of former times. They were unseen hosts which passed through the countryside, usually after darkness had fallen, in wild cavalcades, snatching away everyone they met on the roads. And that was not the only humans they took with them, but also cows from the fields or hens from the henhouse. These they cooked in great banquets at the end of each procession, in such repasts, reflecting as they did the feasts which characterized Celtic celebrations, frequently became the stuff of rituals, folklore, and legend. One word of warning, however: such beings usually resented the nomenclature fairy, and so would invariably often refer to them by other names. Other epithets had to be found. The good people, the fair folk, the gentry, and so on. It was always wise to have your door tightly shut when the fairy cavalcade came passing by. How terrifying. Now, from my knowledge, fairies are semi-malicious. They can easily become aggravated and attack, but just as easily move on. They are rarely helpful things. So if you see a little sprite, best to leave it be and get out of its way, for they're not known for their hospitality, in this humble reader's opinion. From my personal experience. The l'art of gesto. arguably, nowhere is the tradition of troop fairies more prevalent than in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland. All across the wind-swept moors and between the lonely islands, large congregations of the creatures were said to travel at ferocious speeds, sometimes visible, at other times invisible. In the West, such a grouping was known as the Slula, the spirit, multitude, or the host. In fact, aspects of the host were said to be absorbed into English to give the word slogan, slagarin, the cry or calling of the host, obviously denoting a battle cry. You do not want to be around when you hear the slogarin. Trust me. In the west of Scotland, the Slaw were also known as the Na Fir Chris, or Nimblemen, ancient Celtic gods who had been banished from the sky and become the Merry Dancers, or Aurora Borealis. As might be suspected, the host's relations with the humans they came past were frequently not all amicable. As they rushed past, the hosts flew out fairy darts and bolts in order to do damage. These would strike humans at the doors of their houses, break windows or pictures by the houses, and kill animals as they stood in the fields or about the barnyards. In some cases, it was believed that the slaw could not themselves directly harm, since it was forbidden by God, but they carried off unsuspecting humans who they would force to commit dreadful acts. That's not what we want at all. The folktale of the Western Isles are full of people being swept up and carried along with the fairy throng and forced to fire fairy darts at their neighbors or their neighbors' property, usually against their will, at the malevolent behest of the host. Occasionally, several branches of the overall host did battle amongst themselves and marked a warlike nature for fairy kind. Their blood spilled on the ground below of the wonderment of passing humans. In Bara, the drops of blood are referred to as Folie del Sla, or the blood of the host, and used to describe red crustal objects from the micaceous rock of the island following a period of hard frost. Traditions say that these droplets of coagulated elf's blood, which has gone on to form bloodstones, rocks that have special supernatural powers if gathered together. Quite often, the slaw would travel about in little eddies of air or amidst whirlwinds, which can cross both land and sea. If a Christian should see one of these passing by, they must always say, "God bless you," in case some unfortunate is being swept along with them. Upon mentioning the name, the fairies would be compelled to drop their captive and go in search of another victim. It was considered an extremely charitable and godly act in the Western Highlands to release a neighbor from the grip of a slaw. Those who had been taken by slaw and were freed, however, were often compelled by the call of the slaw and would travel to them any time they were summoned. The slaw would take them anywhere, and there are tales of islanders fishing up as far west as Canada and the United States, carried off by the fairy hosts, and they usually had to find their own way back home. Though the fairies could be malicious towards humans, they could be quite kindly as well, especially to those who approached them and settled their wild fighting, reflecting on the old Highland hospitality However, one had to be very careful, for kindness was usually mixed with mischief, and the tales of West Scotland demonstrates. So, in essence, the host used to flitter around, and, well, sweep you up, carry you away. Something I think we can all agree is not desirable. Have we heard enough about fairies for now? Would we like to move on to something else? Oh, what are these creatures, beings related to mischief? Well, it's just the way that they are. They're predisposed towards it, I suppose you could say. Little gremlins who go about stealing from your pockets and stealing your food, carrying your friends away and making them whack you over the head. It's all quite fascinating. And we have our next competitor. Moving on from the fairies, we have Merfolk, page 66. Merfolk. Certain ancient Christian traditions relate that when Lucifer and his minions rose in revolt against God, some angels sat on the fence, supporting neither God nor the devil. When the revolt had ended and the devil was chained, it was considered that these particular angels were neither good enough to be admitted back into paradise, nor evil enough to be consigned to hell. St. Mitchell incidented from them to ask that God place them between the two in the world of man. God accepted his plea, so the angels were thrown into the human world. Some began to dwell in the air, becoming spirits of the air. Some dwell under the earth, becoming trolls, goblins, and so on. The majority, however, were cast to the sea to become the forerunners of the Merfolk, who, according to legend, still dwell there. This story is often used to explain the origin of the fairy race and their connection to Saint Mitchell, who is the patron saint of fairies, but also more probably to attempt to Christianize old pagan beliefs concerning the elements of the natural ocean. Don't you hate it when they Christianize your beliefs? The coastal Celts viewed the ocean with much awe and defensiveness, as their counterparts inland regarded the earth rates and forts of the countryside. A beneficial sea could give them an abundance of food in the form of fish. An angry, turbulent ocean could take their lives and smash their fragile crafts in an instant. Like the weather, the sea itself had to be placated. This belief bestowed a form of intelligence upon the ocean, which manifested itself in the form of ancient and perhaps localized water gods. Over a period of time, these gods were slowly transformed into beings, some supernatural, who dwelled beneath the waves. These were immortal inhabitants, who in early Celtic mind, of the Tir Forforten, land beneath the waves, a wholly separate society, which lived in Ireland. Although no human could live for long enough in water, the dwellers of the subaquatic realm could reside amongst mortals, if they so choose. Usually, however, they had to discard some memento of their former existence in the sea before they could set foot on land. In some cases, it might be a seal skin coat, but It might also be something else. Yeats, for example, speaks of a cap made of feathers known as the Llocen Druen, which the sea folk wore when in the ocean. If such mementos were stolen by mortals, the sea folk would not be able to return to the ocean. Both races, mortal and immortal, could intermarry and have children. In fact, several Irish families, including the Farrens, the O'Sullivans, the Carys, and the MacNims of Clarence, trace their ancestry to such beings. There are many others too, who place right across the Celtic world, who claim to be ancestry of folks of the sea. Generally speaking, merfolk dwell in two distinct categories: the mermaid, who is breathtakingly beautiful and often attracted to human men, and the merman, who is appallingly ugly, argumentative, and increasingly spiteful towards mortals. It was unsurprisingly the mermaid who usually attracted the most attention, and it formed the basis of many folk tales through Celtic coastal settlements. Tales concerning mermaids, often with those who had consorted with them, provide great clues of the Celtic seagoing mythology, and who can say, perhaps, maybe there is some gem of truth to them, underpinning them. Maybe there is some distant race, memory among the Celts of people who dwell in the sea, all traces of which have been lost. Now let me tell you, mer people ancestors are very up themselves. You should hear them talk. Well, as my great-great-grandfather would say, Alech Metsen Kefen. And we're like, yes, Jeremy, we know you can speak the most basic merfolk. Why don't you study it if you want to pretend to be part of the culture so much? You haven't been in the ocean for like 2 years. Oh, but you know, it's so far away. You won't know. You meet people like that who claim they're part of mer culture, and honestly, it's almost insulting. We have giants, demons, monsters, halflings, solitary fairies and sprites, witches and wizards, and ancient heroes left. What are we doing? Giants sound interesting. And demons, very spooky. Monsters? Well, that's very vague, isn't it? Halflings? They're quite sweet. Giants? Thank you, Overlord. Page 12. Giants. In the year 1828, while the sinking of foundations for the new plummet at the eastern wall of Bailowich Church, Nopoldish, County Armagh, in North Ireland, a group of workmen unearthed a man's skull. It was approximately 3 times the size of a normal man's skull, with long and pointed teeth suggestive of cannibalism. The workman was so terrified they called the local rector to bless the relic and rebury it to a considerable depth, where presumably it lies today. Around 1900, miners were working in a tin mine near Peaden, near St. Just, in the cow wall dug up a thigh bone and an arm bone of a gigantic man, which had been trapped in layers of clay. Deciding not to tempt fate, they left the huge remains where they were. Similar stories have been found in both Brittany and Wales. Legends of giants. How fascinating. whether as individual beings or as a race of supernaturally large creatures abound across the Celtic world, many of them have found their way to general folklore of Western Europe. Tales of Jack the Giant Killer, originally based on an early legend of the British Celts, and the flesh-eating ogres of fairy tales, show just how persuasive the motif of giants can be. There is something in all of us which fears the towering figure and the booming roar of a titan. Of course, psychologists might explain this as giant phobia or some sort of repressed childhood fear of adults, but surely there's something much deeper in our consciousness, some ancient, long-buried race memory. Maybe. Certainly, there is written evidence that giants once walked the world. Stories of Akim and Rathman, the ancient Holy Lands, and their famous son was Goliath, appeared in the Bible. But were a giant race more widely scattered than suspected? The frequently were giants in Celtic mythology would seem to suggest they were a race of immense beings that lived in the West as well. But we must be very careful here, because the ancient Celts did have a tendency to exaggerate the exploits of ordinary men to almost supernatural proportions. Thus, some giants from Celtic legend may be nothing more than mighty warriors, but not all of them. For the ancient Celts, the giants were the first inhabitants of the Western world, leaving evidence of their passing with great megaliths of rock formations which they had supposedly erected. In some legends, they were remnants of the Nephilim, a gigantic and barbaric race which had all but been destroyed by the flood. In others, they were descendants from Noah's evil son, Ham. Yet other sources state descendants from his younger son, Japheth. Whatever their origins, they arrived from Africa in the second millennia before Christ, take possession of the empty lands from the west. Their king was known as Alban, accidentally the oldest known name for Britain. It was the son of the ancient sea god, whom the Romans called Neptune. He is said to have reigned for several hundred years, fathering many children who spread out from the Celtic countries. These were the forerunners of the Cornish giants under Comoria, lord of St. Michael's Mountain, against whom brutes of early King Celts led a number of expeditions, and also the Titans who transported the pillars of Stonehenge from Ireland to England upon the whim of the King Vochin. Some of them were highly skilled and clever, as evidenced by Fiona Machal, the wily Irish giant. Others were stupid, only a little above animals in their intelligence, living in caves, wearing animal skins. Traditionally, these were early Cornish giants. All such stories hint at the long-buried recollection of a vanished race who shared the developing Celtic world with their smaller, weaker neighbour. As human civilization spread across the world, the time of giants began to recede. Now few in number, they were easily defeated by the fabulous figures of mythology and conquering heroes of ancient Rome. Gradually, they retreated to remote valleys and deep caverns, leaving behind their mighty stone constructions scattered across Celtic lands as their sole proof that they had ever been there. A vibrant and youthful Christianity, surging across the Celtic countries, saw giants as monstrous faces of the pagan past and imbued them with horrific qualities: child-eating, wife-beating, murderous intent, and so on. They were quickly absorbed into fairy tales and their prehistoric folklore was rapidly forgotten. And yet, somewhere in the deep recesses of the Celtic mind, the giants still lurk. We should not dismiss them too lightly. They are, after all, the first recorded inhabitants of the world upon all traditions agree. Isn't that something? These large, intimidating race crumbled apart in the hands of their small cousins. How ironic. I'll select the next one, I think. Demons. Yes. It's such a shame we don't get to see the giants anymore. They really aren't all that bad if you get to know them. Demons, on the other hand. The first Celtic settlers in Western Europe regarded the lands they came to with a mixture of reverence and awe. For them, the countryside was a bound of powerful and primeval spirits, whom at the slightest whim could destroy their settlements, spoil their hunting, or ravage their crops. Such spirits were everywhere. They dwelt in the rocks, trees, mountains, and wells, and were continually watchful of the puny human tribesmen who now established themselves on land which had once been theirs. These forces rapidly became the ancient gods of the Celtic world, worshipped by tribesmen as they put down stable roots in the Western world. As gods, they were strongly linked in the Celtic mind to the land and the wild, untamed nature. They were worshipped in a number of forms, both inanimate and animal, for thousands of years. The earliest gods of the Celts were capricious beings, either exchanging favors for obedience, sacrifice, or subservience, or else destroying those who stood against them. Offering a sacrifice were continually made so that the hunt would be good, the ground would be fertile, and no sudden storms would devastate the crops or settlements. Their rites of worship were controlled by the druids and shamans, who were often extremely bloodthirsty. But it was better to obey than be destroyed. For example, in the south of Ireland, a child was sacrificed each year to the river goddess Banna, so that the river which bore her name, the Ban, would not flood the countryside. Not even the mighty Roman Empire could stand against these ancient beliefs, though there is much evidence that the areas of Rome occupied, the Romans and local Celtic deities tended to merge together to form new entities which contained elements of both. It was a form of religious compromise. After the 5th century AD, however, the position began to change slightly. Christianity, the new expanding force in the Western world, was beginning to sweep across Europe, and its base from imperial cities of Rome. The new religion appeared to have little room for the pagan forces of the past. Of course, the Celtic gods did not go away. They were far too ingrained within Celtic society for that. Christians dealt with them in two ways. First, as the Roman Empire had done before, they adapted these deities over time. Or religious framework, turning some into early gods, into saints, and their shrines and dwells into holy places. Or second, they denounce them, demonizing them and their worshippers. Sometimes the distinction between the two was rather blurred, for while Christianity often denounced the use of, say, pagan wells, its priests still officiated them, declaring them holy and dedicating to saints within Christian canon. The Irish Church, for example, recognizes the ancient shedding of animal blood in the Feast of St. Martin, where each house was required to shed the blood of a living animal in order to appease the saint, whereas in other areas it was denounced as demonic. Well, in 1656, the Dingwall Presbytery, finding among other abhorrent and heathenistic practices that those in the place were accustomed to sacrificing bulls by certain tidings, but on the 25th of August, which day is dedicated, they conceive to St. Maurice, and they call upon him, all with adorning their wells and under superstitious monuments and stones. All considered this a similar practice. Such worship included the spilling of blood, upon which demons were said to feast, later becoming viewed in the context of devilry. As Orthodox Christians took a tighter grip on the minds of the people, the gods of the Celtic pantheon became demons of an expanding Christian faith. The Orthodox views may as well have taken root in increasing mosaics and regiments in the medieval West. May have also been due to an decline in paganism, that the Celtic Church and advanced Roman dogma, as the Church of Rome rigorously established its teachings and authority in the Celtic lands. To the mind of the medieval Rexix, Celtic powers lurked everywhere, in the guise of demons, under control of the devil himself. God's people had altered their wiles, but they had now assumed the undisputable characteristics of the enemy of mankind. Some wandered around invisible, others took up a number of familiar shapes. In order to deceive mortals. Yet evidence of them was apparent everywhere in the landscape. The great standing stone horizon was a symbolic finger to some primeval deity. The thin cry of wolf in the forest was a call to the magnificent spirit. The unexplained disturbances in the river marking the passages of some pagan force, all seeking to divert God's children to the true righteous path. Nowhere was the existence of demonic forces more evident than the writings of hermits and reclusives who sought sacred contemplations away from the wiles of the world. These fathers were continually tempted by natural forces and urges which manifested them in several forms, each one diabolical. And the thoughts even of these anchorites served to strengthen the resolve of the militant church against the dark forces. And yet the pagans worshipped and had characteristics of early Celtic society lingering in the hearts of the people, whom the clerics dismissed as demonic. So what did we learn from this? Well, of course, we learned that demons are merely gods thrown aside by new ones. Yes, when something new comes into the fray, it is always quick to toss aside the old and announce it as heresy. And this is true too for my own fantasy world. What is described as the truest and evilest force is also a god. One forgotten to time, unfortunately, and left to rot. The elder gods versus the new. You see? Things aren't as clear-cut as they seem. And of course, you can take into account that the old gods were bloodthirsty and demanded sacrifice, while the new seemed peaceful. But it does not remove the fact that the creators of the land are not the ones ruling it. Isn't that fascinating? Monsters 84. Monsters in Celtic folklore and mythology arguably fall into two categories. The first would appear to be actual creatures which did exist or may have existed in some form of time, but lingered on the memory of people. Great serpents, bears, wild pigs. These form the basis of stories concerning dragons, monstrous boars, and shaggy half-human beings which lit both great myth cycles and the hard-side tales of the Celtic people. The second type of monster was purely the supernatural kind, and may have been the representation of some ancient hunting gods. Of these god monsters were recognizable creatures, giant horses, monstrous wolves, etc. Goodness. While others were queer, ill-defined beings which sometimes contained elements of both human and animal. Many of these entities were larger than life and so incredibly dangerous as to the embody of the ancient gods. Some of these monsters were worshipped, but that didn't mean that they were especially beneficial towards their devotees. Many were capricious and and vandalizing their way, expectations, perhaps reflecting on the nature of the animals which they represented, sometimes tame, sometimes wild and feral. Yes. An example of a monster which combined both animalistic and supernatural aspects was the boar. In fact, this animal was incredibly important to the Celts because, together with the stag, it was perhaps the most hunted animal, but it was also the most ferocious when at bay. The Celts also found the boar meat incredibly succulent and often formed the centerpiece of their banquets. Pork was also the meat to which believed the most frequent consumption for the Celts in the afterlife. So the boar took a special significance in both life and death, becoming the symbol of war, hunting, and on one hand, hospitality and feasting on the other. As the further symbol of greatness and strength, the best piece of pork at the banquet was named the champion's portion and was always awarded to the greatest warrior present. In this, the strength of cunning was the gods passing the most deserving mortals, thus forging a link between the natural world and the realm of the gods. An example of this practice is to be found in Irish mythology, Brut's Feast, where the great heroes of the land squabbled furiously over the champion's portion. And of course, the boar also took a supernatural aspects as well. The Irish hero Diarmaid was a foster brother who had taken the form of a wild pig, which the heroes hunted and who met his eventual death. In the Welsh tale of Churchwell and Olwen, the creature Tush Chawil. Celts. Man, the Welsh always get me. The formidable monster transformed from an evil king to many cases monstrous entities, boars, stags, horses, and more, often lured the drawn entities of heroes from the other world existed. That's the interesting thing, isn't it? You don't truly know what's a monster or not. You could be walking around here every day, look up and you see a raven staring down at you. And if you weren't paying attention, you may think that's just a bird. And you go about your life. But if you were to stare for too long, it might notice. And, well, if it notices, then it's probably thinking that you know what it knows. It's good to be respectful to nature. And if you see something maybe staring at you a little too intensely, with eyes slightly too human for its own good, it's probably best to turn away. So, we've covered the Fae folk and the monsters that dwell within, and the so-called demons. There are many creatures in Celtic myth that we haven't even touched on yet, like the almighty Dullahan, a creature which carries its head in its hand. You see, it rides on the back of a horse or in a carriage, with its head tucked under its shoulder, laughing wickedly. Its smile is extended wide, tearing at its face, with rotting teeth, skin the color of moldy cheese. And it would cackle as it rode violently across the landscape. That, of course, is not a problem. If you see a Dullahan rushing past you, well, no problem, he's not going to hurt you. In most cases. Or maybe he will. He might get in your way and pull out his whip, made from a human spine, of course, and try and beat you with it. But in most cases, they're too busy riding. The problem is if they stop. Because if a Dullahan has stopped in front of you, there's a very high chance that you're the one he's been riding for. And he's going to scoop you up and whisk you away to the afterlife. And yes, of course, that's just one of the many Celtic monsters I am more aware of. You know. I hope you're all having fun. Then, of course, you'll know from my series there's the Puka. The Puka is another fey creature, and what it is varies. It can be a black rabbit-like creature. a black horse, or various other creatures. It's a shapeshifter, but the tone always stays this very dark black. And they tend to be passive unless they're staring at you, which probably means you've got an omen of death approaching. And then, to round it off, there's the Banshee, the Wailing Woman. Yes. Say you're wandering alone on the moors at night. It's cold and misty and dark, and suddenly you see a woman from the shadows staring out at you. That is the Banshee. But you are okay, just as long as she doesn't scream. And a more light-hearted note is the cat Sith. The cat Sith looks like a average black cat with a white splotch on its forehead. They are harmless when you're alive. However, when you die, they creep into the church where you are being laid to rest, and they pore over you and snatch up your soul, so you can never go to the afterlife. Such a shame. However, if you planned ahead and told your loved ones, beware the cat Sith, they could watch it stroll in, sniffing out for your soul, and say, "Good evening, cat. Would you like to play with some string?" And the cat, being a cat, would go, "Well, I suppose it will be a little longer before the body gets buried. I have time to play with some string." So he plays with the string, and then he goes, "Now, I do have to go collect that soul." And then the people go, "Well, cat, can I ask you this? Why is a raven like a writing desk?" And the cat, being a natural fan of riddles, as all cats are, will ponder this. He'll go, "Now that is an odd question. Why is a raven like a writing desk? Well, I just don't know. But okay." And as he's pondering this, you can slowly wheel the body out. And eventually he'll click his paw together and go, "Yes, of course, that's why a raven's like a writing desk." And he'll slink back towards the graveyard as the body's being lowered in. It's his last chance. He starts scampering forward, and you say, "Well, hello, cat. Would you perhaps like some milk?" And the cat freezes, and he goes, well, if I drink the milk very, very fast, I'm sure I can still get to the body." So the cat pauses and takes a drink, and by the time he's finished, well, your loved one's safe and sound in the coffin. And don't worry, they won't harbour much guilt. He'll just say, "Well, darn. I suppose I'll get the next one." And that is the cat Sith. What are some other dark creatures that loom? Well, we can always consult the book. I wonder if any of you have met a fae. It'd be quite interesting, wouldn't it? course, changelings. Changelings. Every parent's worst nightmare. You think you've finally got past the hard bit. Your child's resting in their crib. You relax. You close your eyes and drift asleep. And in the night, unbeknownst to you, something sneaks in, snatches your baby, and puts something identical in its place. Identical, but wrong. Now you go up, you say hello to your baby, say good evening, old chap, shakes your hand as normal. And you notice throughout the course of the week, it's acting slightly strange. It's eating more than it would. It's crying more than it would. Well, that's nothing. Babies can be very temperamental. And it's beginning to grow up faster than it should. And, well, by 6 months, this thing is enormous. It's the size of a toddler. It's fascinating. And what is actually happening is that your baby is gone. And in its place is a fae, a changeling that will slowly develop. Something that looks human but isn't quite. Oh, spooky. Well, I think I've tormented you for long enough. Now I can read your comments if you would like to send me some questions, messages, anything at all. It's been fun telling some stories. Let's get started. First comment I see. Do you have any pets? Yes, I have 2 dogs, Florence and Charlotte. How am I? You know, I'm good. Today's been up and down, but I'd say that it ended good. Doesn't that sound nice? Well, that's clearly not crystal, but it'll have to do. Hear that? To me, that means it's glass, not lead. Such a shame. I thought it would be. Unless the orange peel is causing a disturbance. There we go. Beautiful. What is the book's name? This book is called The Creatures of Celtic Myth by Bob Curran. It's wonderful, and it reads quite well. What were you drinking? I was drinking iced tea. Homemade. What do you think? You might make any more vids that are not storyline based? More sounds and talking. Well, I'm not that kind of ASMR artist, but I suppose if there was a big request for it, I could do a simple sound-based ASMR. But the market is oversaturated, in my opinion, and I prefer to be creative. Did you ever think? Did you ever see the green fairy when you tried absinthe? Unfortunately, it's not real. The green fairy is simply a myth created by wine companies in order to make the competition illegal. Which worked. Absinthe was banned and wine became king once more. Which is a real shame when you consider the fact that we're living in a society which claims to have a free market, that an entire product can be banned on the word of one quack. Are you aware that everyone is simping for you? I'll be honest, I actually highly doubt that. I'm just a normal guy. So I think people are probably just excited that I'm doing a live stream, which I think is quite different from simping. What is your favorite type of demon? I'll be honest, I don't know many demons. I'm not versed in Christianity very much. So I'm afraid I don't know. I'm not simping the fuck boy. Yeah, exactly. How old am I? Okay, well, I can give you a hint. I was born during the Civil War, not the American Civil War, just the Civil War. So that gives you an idea of the year I was born. Unfortunately, my side lost, and my family was kind of a bit miffed about that. But it all worked out in the end when the ruler died and they reinstated his son, you know. So it all worked out in the end, don't worry. We just had a couple of years there where things were down in the dumps, but it's okay. Oliver Cromwell's dead now. There's quite a tell. I will write you up as immortal. Please don't do that. Immortality is such a curse. I would never wish it upon my worst enemy. Have you ever considered the fact that if you're truly immortal, no matter what happens to you, you'll keep living? That's not something I'd want to endure. Is that your real voice, or are you good at voice acting? That's actually a really good question. I'll leave that to you guys to distinguish whether this is my real voice or whether I'm voice acting. Would you do a video involving celestial beings? Maybe. It's quite scary, but immortality is such a nice thing to write about. I agree. Have you ever read the works of Bram Stoker? He came up with the concept of Dracula. He wrote a very good book about it, so I suggest you read about Bram Stoker and maybe Mary Shelley. They're both good writers for horror and science fiction, respectively. Anything else you wish to discuss? I'm just going to vamp until people decide what they want to ask me. Did you know that the character of Absinthe, who was recently created, is pansexual? That's just a bit of fun fact for you all. I don't know if you can understand my ramblings, but if you can, there you've learned something. Fun facts for ya. Nice pants. Thank you. I put them on because I figured someone would see them. I'm glad I didn't decide to just go pantsless. Imagine living forever, but everyone you meet is aging and dying. Yes. That's the common problem, you know. Hello. Living for just a long time. Drinking. Opinions on sharks. I think sharks are pretty radical. I enjoy the company of sharks, although they can sometimes be a bit bitey. And if you were to ask me personally, I would say tiger sharks are incredibly rude because they eat people without warning, versus other sharks who are usually just confused. How long is your hair? I think it's about almost shoulder length at the moment, but I am planning on having it cut. Say, Why is my chair so high? It's not. It's just an average height for a chair. Why? That's been said like in the last thing as well. You know this is a desk, right? Desks aren't as high as tables, they're lower to the ground. Like, I hope you this is the height that a desk is so you can type it and stuff and write. Nails are still the same, I see. Nope, I redid them. This is a different color. Will you ever do a face reveal? I'm going to say right now, because I say it every time, but I'm just going to outright say no. Because last time, I usually skate around the issue, but no, I'm not going to do a face reveal. Human flesh doesn't taste good for sharks. I'm fairly sure it doesn't, but I wouldn't know. I'm not a shark. Human flesh, not super appealing. It usually, if you eat the wrong part, makes you go insane. Would you make a shark boy for one of your audios? I actually have been working with, if you know Mo, one of my fantastic artists. Mo and I have been working on a shark character for a very long time. We actually, a very long time ago, planned Ocean Week. It never really happened, but there was going to be a shark character in that, so I guess it's shelved at the minute. Your sweater looks good. It is a very good jumper, yeah. Will Twisty get his hair cut too? I don't think so. I think Twisty's hair is pretty standard. Plus, Twisty has shorter hair than me. Twisty's hair is like a bob that comes up maybe slightly lower than his ears. Mine is slightly longer than that at the moment. I'm the only one who thinks he might look like a boy in a band. Understand? His hair would need to be super long with a red stripe. Red as in red or red as in ginger? Benny looks like the Queen of England. I take that as a compliment. Have you ever watched The Haunting anthology on Netflix? It's based on the works of Shirley Jackson. No, I haven't. Oh my goodness, a Russian word. I don't speak Russian. I'm so sorry. What's your favorite mythological creature? Harpies. Actually, I really like harpies. What's my zodiac sign? You tell me what my zodiac sign is. See if you can figure it out. Yes, I am all seeing, all knowing. I'm afraid you'd have to guess my zodiac sign. I'm not sure what it is. And I guess it would depend which calendar you're going off as well, wouldn't it? That kind of stuff, Just wondering if you consider doing an idea from Dragon Tasmanian Tiger who makes clothes. Perhaps, I'm kind of staying away from dragons at the minute, but Twisty doll I made is even less accurate. If you actually made a Twisty doll, can you please email me? It's in the description of all my videos, unless I will let you know that I have terrible memory and you might have already sent it to me and I might have responded. That's possible. And if that happens, just ignore what I'm saying right now. But if not, send me a pic by email. I don't really have much social media. I guess Tumblr. I have a Tumblr, but you'll have to find that one yourself. And I post lore and jokes on there, but I'm not very funny, and the lore's long and complicated. Will I do another changeling audio? No. Feeling very blunt today. No, I'm not doing another changeling audio. Do I have an imaginary friend before? No, I had a fake one where I pretended I had an imaginary friend because I'm insane. How did you get into mythology and mythological creatures? I had, when I was a child, a bunch of books about different mythologies, and it was so fascinating. It was just such a good thing to have and read through, and it made me really appreciate mythology. Yeah, that was good. Okay, now I'm gonna shuffle some cards while doing really bad voice. I got the book that I read you from Amazon.com. Amazon.com, that's where I got the book. I got the book from Amazon.com. If you want to buy the book, you need to talk to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, you can buy the book from him at Amazon.com. Give me things from Amazon.com. Give me all your money. I need to buy a new laptop. No, I don't. It's fine. Look, I'm working on it. It's fine. Was that an audible whisper, or could you understand that? Oh, that's fun. You made a theory about Oceanside. I wonder if it's true. You know, it's nice to have people actually theorize about my work. I don't know, but it gives me a certain feeling where I'm like, what? People care enough to do that? There's a wonderful person at the moment who's actually working on documenting all the things I've made into sort of wiki, which, and I won't say who they are because they might want to stay anonymous, but that is a whole nother level of loveliness. Discord server. No, I don't have one. Sorry. I don't know if I really want to get into that stuff at the minute. Oceanside and Metopia in the same universe. Well, you're never endlessly funny. Did you know that funny? It was random. You were really funny, and I totally love your comedy stylings. You should probably go on SNL or some other great comedy show, because you're smart enough to do that. And you probably need to go out and expand your comedy horizons, because you're so funny. Did you know that? You're incredibly funny. And you're not rehashing old jokes at all. No. You're really funny and talented. And you need to expand your joy to the world. Let everyone know how good you are at doing that. Man, I love shuffling cards. There's something never-endingly interesting about it. What anime am I watching? I need to say I'm watching one, don't I? I was watching Cowboy Bebop, then I stopped. Yeah, I'll watch it again. Don't worry. But I don't really watch much anime. I should, but I don't. I don't know. I'm a very bad weeb in terms of I hardly watch any animes ever in my entire life. So I guess I'm not a weeb at all. Consider me a fake fan. Although I would love to do voice acting for an actual anime. That would be so cool. But I don't speak Japanese, and I doubt that they'd ask me for anything else. What's my favorite hero? Hercules. Have you ever played kind of Genshin Impact? No. I just got done with Food Wars. It was so good. I tried watching Food Wars. I even bought the manga, and turns out it's really weirdly sexual. So I just wanted a really fun cooking show, because I think anime could be great for a cooking show, but they had to go and make it weird, like Japan does all the time. No hate on Japan, but you could have just made a really cool cooking show, but you had to make What's my favorite food and why? Pesto pasta, because my mum used to make it for me when I was sick. Dude, your channel is getting me through the quarantine. That's lovely. What's your favorite word? My favorite word is bambino. So you say bambino. Bambino. I also like minestrone and ricotta. These are all good words. Tortellini, bocconcini. Forced us to be Australian. Yeah, that's a good one. What culture am I? That's the big mystery, isn't it? You'd have to guess. You can guess that if you want. Do I speak any other languages? Nope. I only speak English. Where am I from? Same questions before, you just have to guess. Oh, well, apparently Russian person. I'm gonna name you. No, I'm not gonna name you anything. That's incredibly insensitive. I'm afraid I can't read your name quite because I don't understand how Russian symbols work, but they have made the assumption that I am British. Of course. You think I'm Russian? That is funny. That's funny. Really? Oh, if you could live a life of a character in your world, who would it be? I mean, Absinthe, right? He has the best life. Call me Minchak. Glory to Estotska, Minchak. I assume he's from the UK and has Italian relatives. That's I wonder where the Italian thing came from. Speaking of Italian, I went to this wonderful espresso shop today. Oh my god, it was wonderful. They had the traditional like mortadella and prosciutto, and they were slicing them, making them into sandwiches, and they had like mozzarella cheese on the bottom and basil. And I had a cannoli and a latte, and it was a wonderful day, and I got a lot of work done, and everything was kind of vintage and old school, you know. I loved it, like the little Italian bakery in a Molto Bene. But genuinely, they were lovely. You know. And they made really good bread. Favorite type of weather? A storm, thunderstorm. If you're smart, I'm born in 2008. How old am I? Too young to be watching my videos. You always make me smile. Love you. Oh, you're so sweet. Are there any good chapters of history? Are there any chapters of history you hate? Like good science, medical knowledge you came out of it, but you hate the fact that it happened at all. Oh, there's tons of moments in history that are just abhorrent and pretty awful. I won't go for modern history because that might hit too close for home, but like the I don't know, the let's think, the mass sacrifices of the Mayan Empire. That was a pretty bad one. The enslavement of the Jewish people by the Egyptians. It's pretty terrible. The removal of the removal by Oliver Cromwell of King Charles I, because King Charles was cool, in my opinion. Have you tried Burst? Yes, I've tried Burst. That just sounds perfect. Yeah, I don't know. I always think it's fun when people try and guess my nationality. I don't know why, but I love what people theorize and come up with. It's a silly thing I have, but I just love it. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun and silly, but it's nice anyway. And it's really nice to hang out with all of you. You seem really nice and friendly. Soft voice, sleep time, best combination. Agreed. I love history, but I think I know nothing still. That's sad. You sleep. Paralyzed. Is your laptop okay now? I really don't want to go into my laptop at the minute, but let's just say my laptop is functional, but the company has said that they will not be fixing it unless I pay a huge amount. And turns out that they just don't supply replacement parts to laptop repairmen. So like, what the fuck? Like, they just don't supply replacement parts at all. So I'm pretty much screwed. So I'm gonna have the issue with my laptop until I get a new one. So shoot me. Don't. Sorry, bad joke was in bad taste, but it's just annoying stuff like that. Anyway, we won't talk about the laptop situation any longer. I will survive. Have I ever been to Thailand? Unfortunately, no. I would love to go. It seems nice. Probably when things cool down a bit, I'd say. If you don't ever do voice acting for an anime, what type of character would be challenging, difficult to do? A female. No, if we're being serious, probably some sort of super masculine character, because I don't know if they could do that voice. Yamano. Do you love voice acting for? Well, look, this is gonna hype people up. I did love doing Salt. It was a fun voice, and I got to do the clicks, but onwards and upwards. You should make more father. ASMR just warms my heart so much. I might. No offense, I'm sorry, but when do you react to people who simp in your videos? I'm more okay with it. Like, if we're going to address this, it's fine. Because these are fictional characters, and it's fine, honestly, if people feel like this character's gorgeous, because a lot of them are giving you personal attention, so it's natural to kind of feel that way about them. Like, it's almost like I'm inviting it by having these characters be friendly and like inviting and sometimes straight up romantic. So when people in the comments talk about how much they love them or are in love with these characters, it's fine. Like, honestly, it is. So, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that, dude. Yeah, let's move on. It's okay. If you can cuss, we can cuss though. I didn't ban you from cussing. No. We'll survive. Oh, that's so sweet, guys. What do you think of meat crayon? That might be a color of crayon, or it might be like a creator. I'm sorry, I'm really out of the loop with that stuff. Yeah, your voice is really low just now. Yeah, it's my favorite kind of films. Horror. I love horror. What are you messing with your hands? It's a bull trinket. See? Spooky bull trinket. I found in a graveyard. I want to be Elias, a little helper. Wouldn't be a stitch. Oh, you should look him up. Probably Yeah. I like your shirt. Where did you get it? Op shop, like a thrift store, charity shop type thing. What was I doing in a graveyard? I was looking at the. Oh God, this makes me sound so edgy, but okay. So I was walking, and I walked all the way to a graveyard, and it looked really nice, and so I walked through the graveyard. I wasn't being broody, and I wasn't being moody. I was just walking. Okay, let's put that work. Do you know a lot about medical history? Just on your own? I don't know a ton, but I know a little bit. Would you rather have no arms or no legs? No legs. You should check out Russian graveyards. I'm sure they're interesting, and I'm sure they're quite different from the ones I'm used to. Didn't graveyards used to double as parks? They absolutely did. Yes, all over Europe and a lot of other places actually. So there's a market near me, a food market that is built on top of corpses because it used to be a graveyard. And they just put a market on top of it. Yeah. Any movies you like the most and other people don't? Not quite sure of that. I tend to agree. Oop, yeah, I tend to agree a lot of the time with other people. You know what I mean? Huh. You can't just wander in a graveyard where you're from? Solar eclipse? That's so strange. Interesting where you're from. Answer your question. I think you might. I'm guessing where you're from. Answer this question, and I think I might know where. What are you wearing right now? This is a jumper, or maybe a cardigan. I know it's a jumper, I think. Yeah, this is a jumper. I think. Yeah, jumper. Just keep saying that word. Wow, you are creepy. Alright, well, I was being friendly, but no, I don't like you. Yep, definitely from the UK. Yeah, they're frauds to keep him. Fair enough. It wasn't directed at you. That's okay, but I was saying, if you're listening earlier, I was saying I think it's fun when people try and guess where I'm from. So don't worry, I'm not upset. I think it's actually quite fun. Also, the UK is, like, people guess the UK a lot. The UK is a huge place. I don't know if America knows this, but it's like 4 countries. Hmm. So, consider that. Mhm. Sorry. You have a favorite part of fashion history where you wish you could go back to so I could wear it? Not really. Fashion's constantly changing and I like it. I'm guessing Wales or England. That's interesting. I wonder why you'd assume Wales. I get England a lot, but Wales is new because I don't think I have a particularly Welsh accent, and for God knows I can't understand the Welsh language. Nightmare. Look up an Oceanside. Randomly, what character would you think you would wake up as? Maybe Absinthe? maybe that fits me a bit. I don't know. Guys, y'all make him paranoid. I'm scared and worried. Why would I be paranoid? I'm not paranoid. Honestly, if someone found out the country I was in, I would be like, oh. But you know. England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, right? Yeah, that's it. That's the 4 kingdoms. What's your favourite villains? Too hard. Too hard, can't answer that one. Can you say candles? Candles. Candles. Everyone forgets about poor Wales. Worth a shot. That's true. Everyone forgets about Wales. I don't know why. Yes, the UK. It's 4 countries. We don't know enough information to pin it down to one. More English accent, but it could be faked. That's interesting. It's also, I don't know, it's interesting that I'm automatically pinned to the UK. That's just fascinating. Like, again, I'm not saying I'm not from the UK, but I guess maybe the accent kind of thing gives people that idea. I went stalking by a creepy man. I'm so worried about you. Sorry. I don't think it'll be that big a deal if they know the country with a vast amount of land on it. Unless I'm from like a tiny little island in the middle of nowhere where someone can directly find me, which I'm not. You wouldn't need to worry. What's your on the go song for repeat now? I actually don't have. I usually have one, but I don't have one at the moment. Oh, I actually do. No, I just remembered it. I do. It's the Red Dwarf song Tongue Tied. It's silly. Yeah. What about Nordic regions? With Sweden, Finland, maybe Norway. Would you ever grow a mullet? People are saying that, right? I don't think I would. I don't think it would suit me. I'm a bit too fluffy and silly looking for that. This is my first time catching your streams. Hi, it's so good to see you. We did the book reading already, so now we're just kind of having an AMA type thing. Is it weird that I want to clean and repaint your nails? Oh well. I'm also getting Aussie vibes. Oh, cool. Can you explain to me those vibes? I'd love to hear that. I've been stalking, but both times I should say. What colour are your nails? They're mostly nail coloured with slight hints of purple. The funny thing is, these were painted like not that long ago. My nails just seem to just cast off any paint that goes on them. So I've just accepted this. Yeah, you know, it's okay to miss out on the book reading because there's this one's probably going to stay up, so you can go back and read through it. I recommend I Bear a Symphony. It sounds nice. Go back to class. See ya. Love for spiders probably gives away Aussie vibes. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Australia is known for loving spiders. I think they're known for having spiders. They're not just going around being like, that bloke's fucking sick. But I can get that. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, one last streams you did where you write a lot and holding little status. What does all that mean? I'm trying to figure it out. That was just me doing kind of Call of Cthulhu style thing where it's like a researcher. But I'm not giving you any more detail than that. That makes me wonder, what's your favorite nail color? A sparkly purple. I don't really wait to say banana or bonanza or I don't know any other words for it. I don't know any other silly ways to say banana. I could say banana. That's very American. I can assure you I'm not from there. I hate spiders. Being Australian doesn't make you immune. I would agree there. Sorry, you gotta read that one. Plot twist. He's actually from the US with a heavy Southern accent. Hold on, I can kinda. So this is my, so I actually want to come clean here. This is my actual real voice. No, I didn't want y'all to be mad at me. I really didn't, but a lot of folks don't actually like you when you do an American accent. They find it kind of distracting. So I put on this like fake, kind of fancy voice. That tend to work out too good. So bad. I'm a cowboy. Do you know any words in Spanish? Do we say tapas? Was good. I know a couple of words in Spanish, but not many, and they're mainly food words. Like tapas, gazpacho. I guess fucking chorros, that kind of stuff. I'm afraid. I'm afraid I don't know enough Spanish to really get by. In fact, I don't know any conversational Spanish. Really sorry about that. And if I ever go to Spain, I'll be certainly lost. Love that. I do a big stretch. Oh, my bones break. Do you know any Russian words? Again, it would just be food words like borscht and Yushanka. That's another one. And oh gosh, I used to know the one for. I've forgotten it. I just had it. Das Vidania. There you go. Das Vidania. Do you know any French? No. You sound like my cousin when you do that accent. Why does our eight-legged abomination session not exist? Do I know any German? I think I actually kind of can read a bit of German, but I don't know much German. I don't know shit about Spain. You're good. Spain is a lovely place. I've got family from the south. Should give them a good old country accent. My cat eats bugs. Reading any good books lately? I'm reading Lovecraft Country, but it's kind of slow going at the minute. Read some good stuff there. Weird question, I'm not going to ask. Would you ever wear a dress? Not to show anyone, but you just do it. You're right. That is a weird question. Oh, hold on. What about Polish? Yeah, no, I know zero Polish. I really don't know anything about Polish culture either. Like, I don't know, it feels kind of removed from anything I might know. So you can definitely take Polish off the places where I could be from. I know nothing about it. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Does Poland make like sausages? I think I remember there being a thing called Polish dogs, which is like a hot dog, but like white. Maybe that was Polish food. I don't know. I don't know. I love a Polish grocery store. They have super yummy foods. That's great. Do I have a cat? No, I am a dog person. I don't dislike cats, but it's not really anything I've ever got involved with. Have you ever played any Resident Evil games? I'm playing 2 right now, and it's quite spooky. Like, I'm going through a section which is in the police building that's flooded, and I hate it. because when you're walking through, you go, and suddenly a guy pops up. Hate it. Yeah, someone likes to hang out in graveyards. I don't like to hang out in graveyards. It just happens occasionally. Look. It happens occasionally where I want to visit a graveyard. Is that a crime? Fun question. If you're the main character, are you a hero or the villain? I would want to say hero because it's a nice choice, but I don't know. And I don't want to say villain because that's the edgy choice. You kind of put me in a rock and a hard place, but I can be quite selfish. So maybe I err more towards villain. I'm not sure. I'm pretty easygoing person, so I don't think I have enough conviction to be either. Right, reminds me when I got to do the voice thing as a kid. I heard it because I was tinkering with the mic the whole time. That sucks. Well, I think it might be about time to wrap it up. So, if you can just maybe give me any more questions you have before you say goodbye, you know. All right. Well, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.